My gosh. This patient has been to McDonald's just recently. I can hear it. Hello, America. This is the body politic of America. Last week, we did our first in this series. We looked at the eyes and the ears of the body politic. That's, of course, the media and the, I can't put the, oh, well, I'm not an eye surgeon. So anyway, we looked at the eyes and the ears and, sorry, half his brain fell out. It's all right. He's a liberal. Now, we talked about how cancer has spread through the entire body, every organ. And the mandate for Trump in this election is for the entire GOP to excise the cancer. And that means we're going to have real surgeons. Don't worry, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor of humanities. And so I know things like this. I know, for instance, this person has no genitalia. Again, half a brain, no genitalia. What's that tell you? As a doctor, liberal. But we need somebody to be able to go in and know what these things do. You know, I think this is the liver and the heart. I mean, oh, look at all the blood in here from the heart. And then we have, don't do this at home. Don't try this at home. We have some onions and some liver, and I'm pretty sure this is the kidney. And this is what makes poop right here, kids. Okay? So we have to take everything out. Oh, here are the kidneys. We have to, and they don't come out. Well, how am I going to show you what the kidneys, because the kidneys actually are the things that purify everything. We have to have surgeons who know exactly what all of this is, so we don't kill the patient. And they're fine. They're absolutely fine. We need to make sure that we have somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, because it's going to get bloody. A surgery hasn't even begun yet, and it is already very, very bloody. The pushback from the deep state. We've seen the opposition, the resistance. Have you seen the reactions so far? Nothing has started yet. Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset because, of course, obviously. Then, damn these hackers. Definitely not a deep state DOJ leaker. It was a hacker who exposed Matt Gaetz. I mean, the military-industrial complex. I mean, Joe Biden authorized U.S.-made supplied missiles to attack Russia inside of Russia. But Pete Hegseth, he's the dangerous Christian nationalist because, I mean, he's got tattoos. And again, obviously. And how do you think big corporate media is going to respond to RFK's look into big pharma? Because this person is a mess. This person is dead. They probably should have not come to me as their doctor. But we're going to look at the actual doctors who are going to cut up. The lung just fell out. Sorry, we lost him. We're going to talk about big pharma and big food. And you have to understand the propaganda game that is coming your way. How much is spent on CNN, even Fox or MSNBC? How much of big pharma ad revenue money is there alone when you turn it on?
Paxlovid.
You flu shot that body, and now you spike vax that body.
Some people have had changes in behavior, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, and suicidal thoughts or actions while taking or after stopping.
Because in the end, science will win.
Oh, science is winning big time. Wait until you see how much science is winning right now on today's show. The surgery hasn't even begun yet. But we need to make sure that no matter how bloody it gets, it doesn't deter us. Tonight, we're going to show you how we're going to take on the Trump plan, big pharma, big food. Tonight, we continue with RFK Jr. and America's health. Let the operation begin. Hello, America, and welcome to the program. Now, last week, I showed you this diagram. Could I get somebody to take this coat, please? Stat. Oh, God, this guy again. Yeah, okay, thank you. My bloody gloves. Thank you. Showed you this diagram. This is our body politic. Slow-growing cancer. A doctor, man. Throughout the entire system, Americans have sensed this for a very long time. Something is wrong. The system is not working the way it was designed to. The system is dangerously sick. When it causes people to be fearful of their government, you know it's out of whack. Now, this is slow-growing cancer as a result of the Progressive Project that was set up well over a century ago. It has infected the entire body. So what we voted for when we voted for Donald Trump was radical surgery to pare this government down and get it under control so we, the people, control it, not the other way. They set up massive government agencies that now loom like Greek temples of authoritative expertise in every aspect of all of our lives. It was the 2024 election result. This is a rebellion against this failed progressive project. It is proof that Americans are fed up and are clearly demanding that something be done about all of this cancer. Last week, we talked about the eyes and the ears, the media and the propaganda complex. We cannot continue like this in a healthy way. So what we're looking at as President Trump is nominating all these people, we're looking for radicals. We're looking for people who are disruptors. Trump's new administration has a unique and relatively short window of opportunity to operate on this cancer. This election result represents a demand for and a chance to recover government of, for, and by the people. That's what it's all about. Last week, I explained the cancer affecting the mass media and big tech. Tonight, we want to examine our immune system. The liver, the stomach, what we put into the stomach, and the liver that is supposed to clean our blood. The federal agencies that fall under the Department of Health and Human Services, mainly the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, also the Food and Drug Administration. Now, I want you to look at this chalkboard. The major subtext of this election was anger over COVID-19, how it wrecked trust in the government. The whole pandemic most likely started because of gain-of-function research conducted by the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. We know this now, and it's not conjecture. That was the assessment by former National Intelligence Director John Radcliffe in congressional testimony last year. Worse is that the National Institute of Health helped pay for the gain-of-function research through the nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance. Now, this is a show I did, when? It was like the first year of COVID. We figured this out. We showed you EcoHealth Alliance. We were also damaged, financially damaged by YouTube and others who labeled us conspiracy theorists, said we were dangerous, and that you should not listen to us. Well, what happened? The ones that were dangerous that you shouldn't have been listening to was the mainstream media and the government and the scientists. Once the virus reached America, we learned just how broken and politicized our federal healthcare institutions had become through their counterproductive policies, dishonesty, and censorship that followed. Nobody represented the cancer in the system more than this guy, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's a cautionary tale about so-called civil servants turning their government jobs into personal kingdoms. In his role as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Fauci knew that his agency was funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan. He knew it when the pandemic began. An email that was released last year shows that Fauci received talking points about this research from one of his aides. In 2021, Senator Rand Paul asked Fauci about this.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
This man should be in jail. It's weird because 5 months later, a top NIH official admitted in a letter to Congress that his agency did fund gain of function research. So far, Fauci has not been held accountable for apparently lying to Congress and being really part of the chain of responsibility for all the people that died. But he has had a glowing National Geographic documentary released about his life. And earlier this year, he published his autobiography called On Call, A Doctor's Journey in Public Service. Public service. You know when Fauci retired as director of NIAID in 2022? He was the highest paid federal employee. The entire United States government, he was the highest paid, making well over $400,000 a year. And retirement apparently includes major perks. According to the nonprofit watchdog group Open the Books, Fauci has enjoyed protection from the U.S. Marshal Security Detail, including a chauffeur that has cost taxpayers $15 million so far. Now, for progressive elites like Fauci, being completely tone deaf is one of their biggest talents. Through a Freedom of Information request, Open the Books also discovered that Fauci has also been raking in royalty payments from pharmaceutical companies. For years, this has been going on. Big Pharma pays royalty to scientists who are supposed to regulate them in government agencies who contributed to the invention of the drugs that they sell. It's still a mystery what specific research conditions Fauci made to which drugs, because all that information is redacted. And so is the dollar amounts of these payments, also redacted, which doesn't even seem legal or right. But hey, when you're at the top, you can pretty much do whatever you want. That's the major part of the whole cancer problem that tonight we're going to talk about. Don't worry, though. Dr. Fauci insists that he gives all of his royalties away to charity. We don't know, because it's all withheld from you. The guy works for you and for me and everybody else. Why is it the employers can't find out what's happening with the employees? As Fauci's inconsistencies piled up during the pandemic, why do you think he was so untouchable? Here he is in 2021.
It's very dangerous, Chuck, because a lot of what you're seeing as attacks on me, quite frankly, are attacks on science. Because all of the things that I have spoken about consistently from the very beginning have been fundamentally based on science. Sometimes those things were inconvenient truths for people, and there was pushback against me. So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
Remember what I said earlier about how progressives set up a massive government agency over and over and over again that now loom like Greek temples of authoritative expertise over every aspect of our lives? You can't question them. That's Fauci, in his own words, setting himself up as the Greek god of science in America. All right. We're going to take on the cancer that is destroying the immune system of our body politic and show you exactly what the president is saying he's going to do next. I got to tell you, you should hear me in this. It's really cool. I am your father. Anyway, right now, the United States relies on about 80% of all of our generic medications. 80%. They're all coming from China. That's a little terrifying when you consider that any time, they want to, China could just turn that faucet off. What would we do? I'll tell you what we do. You'd have me as a doctor. That's what we would do. That's not a good thing. Good news is you can do something to ensure that I'm never your doctor. You can have the medical care that you need. Now, it's a solution that thousands of people in this audience have already discovered. It is called the Jace case, and it will allow you to start stocking up medications so you're prepared. Look, I don't play a doctor on TV, but I am a doctor, man. I recommend the Jace case. It's a personalized emergency kit that contains essential antibiotics and medications that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. You just fill out a simple form online. In case you need it, you have it. Jace has launched an all-new powerful compounded version of ivermectin as well. This is $30 as an add-on to the Jace case if you want it. Just go to jace.com, enter the promo code Beck at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code Beck, yes, the doctor of humanities, at jase.com. All right, the Department of Health and Human Services. This is an important agency. It is the second largest federal agency behind the Pentagon, with a budget of almost $2 trillion and over 83,000 employees across 13 operating divisions. Kind of big, probably losing a lot of money doing stuff none of us know about. The Secretary of HHS is a cabinet-level position. Well, President Biden politicized America's health agencies more than any previous administration with his appointment of Xavier Becerra as HHS Secretary. Previously, Becerra was the Attorney General of California, and in that role, he filed felony charges against pro-life investigators who went undercover to expose how Planned Parenthood sold body parts of aborted babies to biotech companies. So he was perfect. He knows all about health. In 2019, he aggressively opposed the merger of 2 religious-based hospital companies because it would have the potential to reduce access to abortion and gender reassignment surgeries for kiddies. He also spent 3 years fighting a group of Catholic nuns in court who were seeking an exemption from Obamacare's contraceptive mandate. The list goes on and on and on with this guy, but you get the picture. He was a complete partisan, far-left hack. But then Biden said, I don't think that's far enough. So he appointed the most beautiful, luscious Rachel Levine as Assistant Secretary for Health at HHS. This is a dude in a skirt, okay? One of the top officials at a massive agency that's supposed to be devoted to the rigors of medical science. Anybody got a problem yet? Yet, if you're a scientist walking the halls of HHS, an actual scientist, and you're like, hey, dude, you don't refer to Levine as she, you'd be fired. HHS has 294 diversity, equity, and inclusion staffers on payroll. Let me give you that number again. 294 DEI staffers. And you ready? 92 of them are working directly under Becerra in his office. You know what I'm saying? 247 of these DEI workers make over $100,000 a year. I'm just wondering, Mr. Taxpayer, you at home, how do you feel about that? What's your payment that you get from the government? Oh, wait, I pay those people to screw everything up. The nonprofit watchdog group Open the Books estimated that the salaries of this DEI workforce cost you $38 million a year. Now, here's a radical thought. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I am a surgeon. You saw me put that patient back together like that. Maybe $38 million could go towards something that was, actually health related. It is not going to be easy to unravel the DEI nightmare. Open the Books found that in 2025, HHS in their budget, the DEI agenda is referenced 829 times. There's a problem with politics, politicizing public health agencies with left-wing fever dreams like DEI. And then there's just the straight-up wastefulness, like this. The FDA recalling 80,000 pounds of butter last week. Now, the butter was not contaminated in any way. It was recalled because it contained a, quote, undeclared allergen. This allergen was not listed on the packaging. What is this undeclared allergen? Milk. Milk. cheese, cream, and milk. Oh my God. The FDA assumes Americans are too dumb to realize that butter and other products like cream are dairy products. You know what? I kind of, at this point, go for natural selection. If you don't know that milk is in cream and cream is what makes butter, maybe you deserve to die. Just of like pox coming all over your face. You're like, I'm just going to explode here. I can't breathe. Maybe that's God just saying, you're too dumb to live. Anyway, it's a dumb waste of government resources, of course, but at least no one was harmed by it, unlike plenty of other FDA decisions. Multiple failures by the FDA over the past 2 decades. For example, we looked these up. They're great. One of them has contributed to the opioid crisis. During the first Trump administration, the president's Commission on Opioid Crisis found that it was caused in part by, quote, inadequate oversight by the Food and Drug Administration. In 2019, a former FDA commissioner said the FDA was wrong to allow the promotion of opioid use for chronic pain. Wait, then what the hell is it for? I mean, let this sink in for a moment. The government agency that supposedly exists for the sole purpose of protecting you from things like opioids, they said they played a role in the crisis that last year killed over 75,000 Americans. I don't know. I think we can do some trimming on the budget there, or give some of the employees butter. A recent in-depth report by the New York Times uncovered how the FDA approved a drug to treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's despite glaring risks, even the deaths of patients during the drug's testing phase. Participants in the drug trial were tested to see if they had a particular genetic profile that made them extra prone to developing Alzheimer's. Those who had this profile were vulnerable to brain bleeding. Not really a big deal. You just saw it with that guy. His brain fell out. He's still voting for the Democrats. Now, it would also cause some swelling if they used the drugs. But the participants were not given the results of their genetic test. In fact, the drug company told them test results have to be secret. I mean, if you knew that you were going to have brain bleeds, maybe you were just going to do them. You know what I mean? And it would have nothing to do. One of these high-risk volunteers, 79-year-old woman, died just after 3 doses of the drugs. You think? She had 51 microhemorrhages in her brain. The Times report says, quote, her final hours were spent thrashing so violently that nurses had to tie her down. Over 1/3 of the high-risk trial participants suffered brain bleeding or swelling after taking the drug. Early last year, the FDA approved the drug, claiming the slight benefit to Alzheimer's patients outweighs the risks. I mean, sure, people are going to have to be tied down to their beds, or perhaps just die in a fit of a seizure. But at least they didn't have any butter. 4 months ago, they approved another drug just like this one from a different company whose trials also caused severe brain bleeding in some patients. Now, why does the FDA continue to approve such risky and sometimes deadly drugs? Well, it's kind of become a cliche that every drug commercial on TV has to spend half the time listing all the horrific risks and side effects associated with a drug. But maybe they should spend more time doing that. Getting a drug approved is a complicated maze-like process, but the system is certainly not helped by the inherent conflict of interest involved in almost half of the FDA budget coming from major food and drug companies. The fiscal year 2022, 66% of FDA's budget for reviewing the drugs came from the pharmaceutical companies themselves. I mean, that kind of sound like, I don't know, a legal bribe? The FDA is not the only federal health agency that needs a makeover, of course. The Center for Disease Control divided Americans with its political theater during the pandemic. Man, it was great to watch, wasn't it? He's like, I think he really believes that about the mask. Remember its 6 feet social distancing guideline that was supported by Mr. Science, Dr. Fauci? Yeah, earlier this year, Fauci did admit there was never any evidence to support that guideline. But it was science. Don't attack it. He also said the 6 feet rule, quote, sort of just appeared. That's weird. That's what happens with quantum mechanics. And they fix my car. During the same testimony, Fauci also said he couldn't recall seeing any studies to justify the masking of children in school. Are you kidding me? Now, it's not a real surprise that the masking guideline might have had such staying power, especially when you know that emails obtained through a FOIA request by Americans for Public Trust showed the American Federation of Teachers influenced the CDC's guidelines on reopening the schools during the pandemic. We knew that at the time, but that was an evil conspiracy theory. Early in 2021, the CDC had been declaring or planning to declare that all schools could return to in-person learning regardless of the degree of COVID spread in a community. But the teachers union and all of their science pressured the CDC to dial back the guidelines with a number of exceptions that delayed full reopening in many states. You know, they were diversity, equity, and inclusion. Greenlighting and endorsing harmful drugs, masking kids to make sure little social distancing markers are on the floor of every single store in America. And they're still there to remind us how stupid we were. How are these priorities coming out of our federal health agency? Well, the incoming administration has their work cut out for them. We tackle next this massive effort and the team of surgeons that are going to do it. Next. Okay. Hey, don't worry. Might be baby's last Christmas because of vaporization, but hey, at least we have Christmas with the baby, you know? What the hell are they doing in Washington? Anyway, let me just talk to you here about My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply has their 3-month food kits. It's really good. It's really good. It's good stuff. I will tell you that I've known some people who are so lazy that when their wife leaves town, they've actually gone into this because it's easy to make good food. Not me, of course. I don't know. Why would you even think of that? Honey, don't check those 3 months emergency food supplies because there's nothing missing in those, especially the puddings. Anyway, right now you can get started by ordering a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Each kit comes with delicious foods, things like stroganoff and honey wheat bread and mushroom rice pilaf. No hamburgers? What is the deal? The entire kit offers over 2,000 calories a day, and it's good, healthy food. You know, there's no Fruit Loops. And it can stay in storage for up to 25 years, which is, I think, the half-life of Fruit Loops. So go to mypatriotsupply.com right now. Order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier. I
mean, I just want to get him a Hall's menthol lip. You know, I mean, it looks like it hurts. He told me it doesn't hurt, but it sounds like it. All right. The COVID-19 pandemic convinced a lot of Americans that we are often being misled. Yeah, it's true. By bad scientists from the very institutions that are supposed to be our most scientific. Are you a science denier? Yeah, if that crap is science, yeah, I am. President-elect Trump apparently ready to do something about it. So late last week, he nominated RFK Jr. to be the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. Before that, Trump had already pledged to, quote, let him go wild on health. Now, I don't know. It's still RFK Jr., so I want to make sure that we have some reins on the guy. But according to RFK Jr. in an NPR interview just 2 weeks ago, Trump has given him 3 directives. Number 1, rid the health agencies of corruption and conflicts. Okay, return the agencies then to the gold standard of empirically based, evidence-based science and medicine. By the way, this is my rod of truth. I was beaten with this relentlessly by my parents for years and years. Anyway, the end of the chronic disease epidemic with measurable impacts within 2 years. These are pretty big. So why is that kind of mandate on the table? Well, let me remind you what's at stake here. What has happened when it comes to chronic disease? I mentioned these stats on an episode last month, but I think they're worth reviewing here. According to the CDC, an estimated 129 million Americans have at least one major chronic disease. 42% of Americans have 2 or more chronic conditions. 12% have at least 5. You know what? Some of these things, I bet we had all of these things when I was a kid, but we didn't go to the doctor and we didn't have the commercials saying, do you have this problem? American life expectancy is now declined to 76.4 years, lowest in almost 20 years. There's a problem. 1 in 9 of our kids diagnosed with ADHD. 40% of the school-age kids now have at least one chronic health condition. In 2000, 1 in 50 children diagnosed with autism. By 2016, it was 1 in 54. I don't know. There's a problem there. And again, the CDC says about 90% of the annual $4.1 trillion healthcare expenditure goes to manage or treat chronic diseases. That's out of control. And that's why RFK Jr. uses this line a lot. Quote, there is nothing more profitable for much of the healthcare system than a sick child. Are we actually being healed? Is our medicine getting better? Are we getting better? Or are we paying to be kept sick? Americans are fed up with being deceived by the agencies that are supposed to be looking out for us. They work for us, or do they? So what is Trump planning on doing? Well, these 3 things. And he's going to start with the low-hanging fruit, DEI, gone. All DEI positions, good. That's part of the first 2 Trump directives. The divisive agenda of DEI comes from academia, and President Biden kicked the door down and let it all flood into the federal government. It has nothing to do with our health or science. It's an easy budget decision, but it won't be easy to implement because DEI has been digging in for 4 years under Biden. Trump will need to keep up the pressure to untangle this rat's nest. The other line that RFK likes to repeat is, quote, public health agencies have become sock puppets for the industries they're supposed to regulate. Now, I mentioned earlier how pharmaceutical companies pay the FDA to review their testing research while seeking approvals. Well, Major Food is doing the same thing. We covered this in a couple of episodes ago. And it's why we have chemicals in our food that other countries just don't allow. From the FDA itself, quote, manufacturers are required to supply the FDA with evidence that establishes each chemical is safe at its intended level of use before it may be added to foods. But what if chemicals are in all of the foods? And you're just saying, no, we're using it at the intended level. Well, doesn't it all add up? It's basically a multi-billion-dollar honor system, and it's got to stop. It's not really hard, really, to remove toxins from our food. How come our government can't seem to do that? And while we're at it, RFK Jr. needs to move forward with his proposal to scale back pesticides carefully. As a farmer and a rancher, pesticides are good, some of them are bad. As 2019, the U.S. allowed the use of 72 pesticides that the European Union has banned. Doesn't mean that they're better than us or they're right, but can we look into all of these things? Americans deserve to know the truth. Now, reforming the CDC would address the second Trump directive about getting back to evidence-based science. Some have called for the splitting of the CDC into 2 separate entities. I don't care how it's done, as long as it gets back to focusing on infectious disease and not making those diseases, but learning how to stop those diseases without making those diseases and without masking kindergartners and placating the teachers' union. As for the third Trump directive to end chronic disease epidemic, that one's hard. In 2 years, RFK wants to prioritize preventative health care, which is kind of logical and smart. He's called for the using half of the National Institutes for Health Research, the budget, to go toward preventative, alternative, and holistic approaches to health. And while he's at it, the NIH monopoly on directing research also needs to end. This is amazing. Last year, the NIH awarded nearly $35 billion in grants to 59,000 recipients last year. Wow, are they that good at screening everything? And it seems like a little too much research power is concentrated in one institution. Maybe we should think about getting the government not involved in all of that. When you have a fire hydrant level like that, gushing research money, there are too many cases out there that shouldn't have happened. Let me give you one. Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy. She had a multi-million-dollar study on using puberty blockers in kids. Now, we all know what answer the government's looking for, right? That they're okay. Well, Dr. Olson Kennedy recently decided not to publish the results of her study because, well, she found out, quote, puberty blockers did not lead to mental health improvements. And she was quoting, concerned the study results would be used in court to argue that we shouldn't use blockers in minors. Yes. So in other words, she didn't publish the results of her taxpayer-funded study because nobody got the results they were looking for. And she didn't want her own study results to become part of a stronger argument against transitioning children. They were only interested in the results that justify the business they're in. Dr. Olson Kennedy is one of the nation's most prominent peddlers of what the left calls gender-affirming care. Now, this is exactly the kind of ideology over actual science that Americans are sick of. Really, these are not unreasonable demands. Scientific medicine instead of political virtue signaling. Safe, beneficial drugs instead of greenlighting risky drugs that create dependency or even kill us. And not letting corporations conspire with the FDA to hide the actual ingredients under bogus terms like natural ingredients. If I'm eating a bug, I want to know it's a bug. Much has already been made about the fact that JFK Jr. has no medical or public health degree. He still has more credibility than the guy who just walked out of the room wearing a skirt. Now, maybe an outsider perspective, the ability to recognize the reality of corruption and institutional rot, a guy who has spent his whole life doing that, suing giant corporations and government entities because of that rot and winning, maybe that's just what the doctor ordered. As a doctor, let me tell you about rough greens. I know the nutritional value in the food you're feeding. I don't care what you're feeding. I know it. I sense it. I know it. It's probably pretty unhealthy. I say that, again, as a doctor. At the same time, the same rule applies for your dog. You got to feed your dog good stuff. You got to feed your kids good stuff. You know what I mean? It's the same. I don't expect you to understand it, but just trust me, I'm a doctor. So that's why I recommend rough greens. It's a dog food. That's not a dog food. It's actually more of a supplement. See, I tried to trick the untrained there. It was developed by a doctor who said, damn it, man, sprinkle it on your dog's food. It contains all the good stuff that your dog needs for a happier, healthier life. No joke. Things like probiotics and antioxidants. I'm not kidding, folks. Remember, brown food is dead food. Get the green stuff. Folks at Rough Greens know your dog's going to love it. You're going to see a change in your dog. At least I have with my dog. Big changes. roughgreens.com/Beck. They'll give you your first trial bag for free. roughgreens.com/Beck. You just pay for shipping. 833-GLEN-33. That's 833-GLENN-33. Call them today. I think my heart has stopped. I can't hear anything in my heart. Would somebody tell Lauren I need a CPR session a little later on? today, maybe after the show. I want to show you, as a doctor, man, a telling chart from Reason Magazine and the Pew Research Center. Pew, it explains so very much. Quote, how Republicans and Democrats view federal agencies. Look at this. Not a single agency is viewed unfavorably by the Democrats who were surveyed. The worst performing agency is the IRS, and it still has 50% of Democrats going, I love the IRS. It's in the DNA of a lot of Americans who vote Democrats. They absolutely cannot fathom the concept of scaling the government back, and live your life without a few in the expert class telling you how to live. President-elect Trump wasted no time after this election starting to put his cabinet nominees and other non-cabinet level picks to head key federal agencies. Here's what I want you to look for. People who are disruptors. I can't believe he's putting these people in. They do. They want to tear apart the government. I mean, not in the way I performed that surgery there where some hack just took that person apart and didn't know then how to put all the organs back in. You got to do it surgically. But our government is out of control. Now, Trump knows how to dominate media coverage. Almost every day for the past 2 weeks, he's featured a bombshell Trump pick that makes mainstream media just like curl up in a ball. And it is a happy moment in my life every day. As I mentioned at the start tonight, make no mistake, the left-wing deep state mainstream media resistance to all of this disruption is underway, and it's only going to get much, much worse. I was talking today about, we might be at nuclear war. I don't know. We're looking at Putin to be the reasonable one. I don't think we're going to go into nuclear war. I don't. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I don't think so. I think this is honestly, the Biden administration setting Trump up for another fall. They're going to say, he was in with Russia. He just loves Putin. So what do? They ratchet this thing up so far that Putin is like, I could have nuked you and I didn't. You used your missiles on me. So I'm not as interested as I was. What do I get? Trump's going to have to pay Putin something, give him something that everybody on the left is going, you can't do that. See, we told you he was in for Putin. I think that's what's going on here. But I don't know. The Biden people might just be willing to vaporize the whole world. I don't know. But the one thing I know for sure is chaos is coming because they're in survival mode. They've worked for 120 years. They don't want this to end. They're this close. And if I can't have you, no one will. Now, they have their precious government agencies, and Trump's coming in to turn them all upside down. They were shell-shocked for a few days after the election, so they're a little slower out of the gate than Trump's transition team, but they're engaged in battle now. So let's look at some of these. The Department of Defense under Joe Biden, literal battle right now. The Biden White House has suddenly decided to allow Ukraine to fire missiles into Russia. So he said that on Monday. On Tuesday, Russia responded by signing in a new law that said, if any nuclear state, that would be us, provides missiles or drones that are fired into our country, i.e. Russia, by a third party, like let's say Ukraine, we reserve the right to use nukes to be able to respond. That's bad. And so what did we do the very next day? Yeah, we sent the missiles over. Okay, why are they doing that? Well, big changes are coming under the new Trump administration. The woke status quo is about to be shattered and they can't handle it. Just to give you a snapshot of the resistance, check out a few headlines, all from the New York Times alone yesterday. Manhattan DA suggests freezing Trump's case while he's president. Oh, is that you really? We're going to be nice about it. We're going to freeze it. That thing is going to be thrown out. Trump's lawyers are trying to get the case dismissed, just like them. But DA Alvin Bragg is trying to freeze the case for the next 4 years until Trump gets out of office. Get used to it. The lawfare is just getting started. Trump, the military, and plans for mass deportation. They spent years calling him a Nazi and a fascist. So now they have to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think they would build concentration camps themselves if they have to. Trump defies the, quote, Me Too movement with cabinet picks for facing accusations. Okay, so they suddenly want to make the Me Too movement great again, even though they haven't cared about it for years. How Tulsi Gabbard became the favorite of Russia's state media. Right. It's Russia again. Russia. Collusion. It's a natural reflex now. It's like you tap them on the knee and they kick you. Russia. They can't help themselves. Order for morning after pills and abortion pills rise after Trump's election. I know at my house, we're hoarding them. Not because we're going to have abortions. We're going to control and corner the market. We're going to be billionaires. He wants to control women's bodies. That's why. He wants their babies to live. What a Hitler. And then there's the 5 ways RFK Jr. could undermine life-saving childhood vaccines. If any children are left after the rush on abortion pills, RFK wants to make sure he cleans up the rest, kill them off by denying them their vaccines for deadly diseases. It was good to celebrate after the election. Was, and I'm still celebrating. I'm doing a little happy, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm doing a little happy dance right now, giving you all this information. Yeah, I'm happy. But it's time now to roll up our sleeves. Well, maybe not right now. Next week is Thanksgiving, and then after that is Christmas. If we're going to vaporize the world, let's do it maybe, January 6th. That seems like a good day. What do you got planned? So we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get back to work, because the work of trying to save the republic never ends. And we're there, gang. We're there. I don't know if people understand this, but when I said nuclear war is happening, metaphorically, it is much more likely to happen by the big state just launching all of their legal missiles and their crybabies in the streets and whatever else they have to do. I'm concerned about war. I'm concerned about the president's safety. We still have, 59 days left before he's even our president. A lot can change, but keep hope alive, because a lot of good things are coming. Miracles are coming, and we'll be there with you to see them. From Dallas, good night.